Everyone always freaks out over snakes in the woods, so today we're going to go through, talk about the venomous versus non-venomous ones, how you identify them, and what to do if you actually get bitten by one. So stick around. Here in the U.S., we have 30 different species of venomous snakes. 23 of those are actually different variations of rattlesnakes. Outside of that, we got the coral snake, we got the copperhead, and the cottonmouth or water moccasin. Cottonmouth and water moccasin are basically the same thing. So one quick tidbit for these before we dive in. So you can, anywhere in the U.S., outside of 4 states, you can expect to be able to find a venomous snake. Typically, you're not going to find those in Alaska. I guess it's too cold. Hawaii, they're fortunate enough not to have them. And oddly enough, Rhode Island, which I'm not sure how they skated out, and then Maine, which again is pretty darn cold up there. So we've all heard the adage, if there's a big triangular head, or if they have the cat eyes, you know, they're the venomous snakes. You need to worry about those. We'll start with the prettiest snake out of all of them, and which is also the exception to all of it. It looks like it'd be the softest, kindest, most gentle snake out there, the coral snake. Nice little round, soft head, nice little round, soft eyes. It looks like it would be just the kindest snake out there. These guys, they have some of the strongest ventum, but fortunately, they have some of the shorter fangs, and they also don't retract. So even though it's a very potent venom, they are typically not considered to be as dangerous as some of the others. So you've got different variations. You've got the eastern coral, the western coral, and then a Texas version because, well, we're special here. As you can see, they're brightly colored, and kind of the determining factor, and there's an old saying that goes along with it, you know, red touches yellow, kill a fellow, red touches black, friend to Jack, or something like that. That actually does work for the eastern versions and the Texas versions, a bit different for the western side of the world. This is a neurotoxin, so it's different than the rest of the snakes out there, which are more hemotoxin, so they're more tissue damage. Because these guys are a neurotoxin, think less tissue damage and more like respiratory failure, paralysis, leading into cardiac arrest. Fortunately, about 90% of the bites coming from these guys, they're from being handled. These snakes aren't ones with big long fangs so they can hook into you and strike you. They're more of a bite and hold on type thing. As long as you're kind of careful and not handling them, typically they're not going to mess with you. Their fangs are so short they actually have a hard time biting through adult skin, much less, you know, jeans or boots and things like that. They're just typically they're not big strikers. There are some lookalikes that are out there, like milk snakes and scarlet king snakes, and unfortunately these guys get killed quite often because people think they're coral snakes. Okay, so next up is a cottonmouth or water moccasin, depending on where you are in the country. Not every snake that swims is a cottonmouth. These things often get confused with things like actual water snakes, which are completely harmless. A lot of those guys get killed just because it's guilt by association. They think if it swims, it's a cottonmouth and it needs to be killed. It's not necessarily the case. These guys will get up to about 6 foot long, but they're more typically, you're going to find them around 2 to 4 feet when they're fully grown. Typically around wetlands, because like I said, they are pretty aquatic. They love to swim. They're going to be pretty prevalent from Florida all the way out to Texas. You got a northern breed cottonmouth, and then you've also got a Florida breed, because, well, Florida needs their own special thing too. Oddly enough, these, much like the copperheads when we get to those, so both of these breeds can reproduce without male intervention, which is kind of unique for them. These guys do get a pretty bad rap, and everyone seems to be really worried about these, so it's not surprising, but it is unfortunate that so many water snakes, which do look really similar, do get killed over just looking like a cottonmouth. But if you know what to look at, they're actually really easy to distinguish. You'll notice this sort of raccoon mask. It's this black prominent bar that runs from the front of the head toward the back of the head, going over and around the eyes. It's a really deep, prominent black stripe. That's going to be your cottonmouth. Whereas if you pop over and you look at the water snakes, you guys are going to notice these little lines that run down the jawline, kind of top to bottom. That's going to be your water snakes. Water snakes aren't going to have the black raccoon mask, and the cottonmouths are not going to have the bars down the side of their mouth. So if you can just take a quick second to make note of which one you're actually looking at, no sense killing those little harmless water snakes that are out there. Now these guys, when they are frightened and they're getting ready to actually strike, they give you a nice warning. They sit there and they open their mouth nice and wide, hence the name cottonmouth, because they've got a nice sort of white, milky, cottony look inside. They're going to give you that sign typically before they strike. They're less potent than like the rattlesnakes, more potent than the copperheads. But having said that, of all the fatalities that we have from snakes, which by the way is really low, only about 1% come from the cottonmouth. More often than not, when you encounter them, they're just going to try to get out of the way. Now, of the venomous ones, if I'm going to get bitten by one, it's probably going to be our next candidate, and that's going to be the copperhead. It is a cousin that's really closely genetically related to the cottonmouth. These guys are probably some of the prettier ones, but they also have the best camouflage. They're really kind of easy to lose when you're looking down in the leaves and stuff, especially during the fall months when all the leaves are on the ground. They've got this kind of Hershey's Kiss looking pattern on the side of them. I say I would rather get bitten by these because out of all of them, they have probably the least concentrated venom that's out there. So typically, even though they account for a pretty significant number of bites, which annually in North Carolina alone, about 90% of the bites are from copperheads. And you can find these guys, by the way, from Mexico and Texas, all the way over to Georgia, and then all the way up to really about Massachusetts is kind of their stomping grounds. More often than not, when there's a bite from a copperhead, they've been stepped on. And these guys, if you come up on them, they're really bad about it. They'll just kind of hunker down and just lay down and try to hide and want you to kind of not even realize they're there. And then when you step on them, then you get bitten. More often than not, it's because you've interacted with a snake. Any of the breeds, when you get bitten, it's whether I've stepped on them or the proverbial hold my beer, check this out. But if you do get bitten by these, it's going to be painful, tissue damage, sort of akin to the cottonmouth, but it's just less of a concentration, so they're typically not as bad of a bite. Next up are the big ones, the rattlesnakes. All right, so we have about 70 different species of rattlesnakes that are scattered from Argentina all the way up to Canada. Here in the U.S., we've got about 23 different varieties of them. But they can be found just about anywhere. They live in deserts, they live in grassy areas, they live in mountainous areas. They're one of the snakes that they're very non-aquatic, but they can swim. You can find them out on the ocean sometimes, trying to get from like one island to the next. They'll go out and about and move around. They're really easy and distinct to distinguish typically, even though you have a wide variety in patterns and stuff, because we do have so many breeds and different color variations. They do typically have that rattle on the end. They may or may not rattle. I know some snakes, when you startle them or they're starting to try to warn you off, they will rattle. Some of them will just sit there and look at you. It's kind of snake specific. Pretty easy to identify. Nice big thick bodies typically. You got the big triangular head, the stereotypical snake that looks like it's going to be naughty. Really elaborate patterns most often. They have a really concentrated venom, so getting bit by these guys, it's going to be a bad day. They can control how much venom they push out. So you may get lucky and get dry bite, you may not. But having said that, with thousands of bites from these guys annually, we really average only about 5 fatalities. As an adult snake, depending on the variety and breed, it can be anywhere from 1 to 8 feet long. Let's take a look at some of them. Let's just roll through these really quickly here. You got the timber rattler, which I think is probably one of the prettier ones out there. I typically see this one more than anything. I've got the western diamondback. You got the eastern diamondback. You got the Mojave here, which is actually a little bit different than a lot of the other ones, because pretty much all the rest of these are going to be hemotoxins. This is a neurotoxin like the coral snake is, so this guy's a little bit unique. You got the prairie rattler. There's an eastern Mississauga rattlesnake. You got the sidewinders. There's a blacktail. There's a pygmy. These guys are cute too. Then you got the tiger rattlesnake, and this one is actually super venomous. It is one of the top 10 most venomous in the world. So definitely don't want to get bitten by him. I think these are more typically like an Arizona snake, if I'm not mistaken. You got a southern Pacific. Then we got the banded rock snake. We got a red diamond. There's an Arizona black. We got a speckled. These are kind of pretty too. You got a western rattlesnake. Then you have a western pygmy. There's a Great Basin, twin spotted. You got the rock rattlesnake, and I would butcher the actual name of this. I just know it's also called a Baja. This guy as well, there's like an Arizona ridge nose. And then you've got the midget-faded rattlesnake. That one just sounds vicious, doesn't it? If you get bitten by a snake, I truly hope you have one of these with you. It's the only thing that's going to save your life. I'm kidding. If you have one of these things, throw it away. Do not use this. Don't dare use this. This is craziness. When you get cracked into it here, you got a handful of things in here. This is from that old school philosophy that you need to suck the venom out. The best thing in this package is a little iodine kit that you could use to clean the wound, if that was the case. And then you got a little bitty scalpel that I'm supposed to fillet open that area and suck all the venom out. Yeah, that doesn't work. Next, if you think it does, next time you go get your flu shot, because it is flu season, do me a favor, take this little joker and see if you can suck the flu vaccine out. It's not going to work. So if you got this, just toss it. But now if you're carrying this, now we're talking. See, this is the only suction device proven to remove snake venom. Open this thing up. Got some alcohol prep pads, a couple Band-Aids, some sting relief. Most importantly, I've got a sweet razor in case I meet some honeys while I'm out on the trail. And then I've got this snake extractor, venom extractor thing. You put the little tube on there, you pull out the suction, put it in there, and you can see the suction coming up. Yeah, this is garbage too, by the way. Just throw this away. If you got one of these things are pretty much useless. It will pull out some fluid. If you get into it will pull out some fluid if you get into the fine print, but really what you're doing is it's pulling out, I think it says it's 0.03% the toxicity of what goes in, and it's predominantly your own juices that it's pulling out. A little bit of venom, but then also what it is, if you've got a bite, the bite will have a tendency to weep some venom out, but if I put the suction on here, it actually closes that tissue down, because most of the envenomation is much deeper than what this is going to get. This is much more of a surface pull, so by pulling at this surface, I'm closing it down behind there, and it's preventing that weeping out. So a lot of doctors at this point think this actually does more damage than just letting the bite actually leak out on its own. So if this doesn't work and this doesn't work, what do I do? Okay, so what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to put a tourniquet on that leg. I don't want to isolate and trap that venom down on any portion of my body. I want that to hopefully slowly disseminate through my body and dilute itself down. The biggest priority is staying calm and getting my butt to the hospital. The reason we have super low fatality rates from snake bites is because for the snake bites that are venomous, we can get antivenom treatments. They are expensive, so ideally we do not want to be bitten by the snake, but if we are, go get it taken care of. They'll give you the crofab and get you all straightened out typically. Like I said, more often than not when a snake bites you, it is because you have handled the snake. You've either stepped on it and been bitten, or you did the proverbial hold my beer, check this out, I'm going to pick the snake up and play with it. But if you are bitten and you have the ability to actually sit down and identify what type of snake it is, it will definitely take the edge off of how quickly do I need to come out of the woods in order to get treatment. With some of these snakes, it can be, like a rattlesnake, it could be pretty darn close to instant that all of a sudden I'm severely compromised, and it can be certainly life-threatening. Whereas some of the other ones, it may take hours before the symptoms really set in. With any of those though, venomous or non-venomous, you do have to be conscious of stuff, because even if I'm bitten by a non-venomous snake, their mouths can be quite dirty and bacteria ridden, so I may have to worry about infection. So if I go to the hospital with a non-venomous snake bite, they may put me on a course of antibiotics just to make sure I don't come down with anything. So it's always a good idea to have that checked out. But it's not something I'm going to have to call in the helicopter to come in and pick me up because I got bitten by something that's not venomous. Okay, hopefully you found that beneficial. I know snakes are one of those things that frighten a lot of people on the trail. And they think anything without legs out there is the danger noodle that's going to kill them. It's a nope rope. Got to stay away from it. Honestly, if you learn to tell a venomous snake from a non-venomous snake, that's not something like a nursery rhyme or something that you try to apply to everything. It's got round eyes, so it's safe. Just learn that we only have like 4 main types. So if you can learn to identify those 4, it completely demystifies snakes, and you know which ones to worry about and which ones to not worry about, and it helps tamp down that fear response. So I don't have to be quite so reactive just because I see something without legs crawling around on the ground. As always, if you guys are checking this video out on the trail, 1, watch out for snakes. If you do see one, take time, pay attention to it, check it out. Once you are not afraid of them, they can be really cool guys to watch. Outside of that, as always, just remember, left foot, right foot, repeat. We'll see you out there next time.